In accordance with the decision of the Temporary Governing Committee, on November the 15th, 1924, the abdicated Emperor Puyi was expelled from the Forbidden City by the troops of warlord Feng Yuxiang. The emperor left behind a tremendous amount of valuable items. The following year, on October the 10th, the Palace Museum was founded, ending its history as a royal residence. With that, a world-class museum was born. On June the 26th, 1923, the Palace of Established Happiness had suddenly caught fire. At the time, many people wondered about just who caused this mysterious fire and the fate of the many treasures in the Forbidden City. There were rumors that the eunuchs on guard were smuggling treasures out of the Forbidden City to sell in Liulichang, the famous Beijing antique market. Some people were certain that the eunuchs set the fire to destroy the records of the things they had stolen. Puyi ordered an investigation, but it led nowhere. Tianlong, all the imperial treasures were kept in the Palace of Established Happiness. When Emperor Jiaqing ascended the throne, he had the treasures sealed in large cases and locked up in this palace. No one dared to touch them until, that is, Puyi opened them 100 years later. This rather ordinary-looking cup is as old as the palace itself. On the bottom, it bears characters which mean made in the reign of Emperor Yongle. This is the first example of a dating practice that was followed from then on in the Ming and Qing porcelain kilns. The cup's pale blue color with faint rust-colored spots was created by the addition of smalt, a rare and expensive cobalt mineral that Zheng He, the legendary Chinese adventurer, brought back from Arabia. Emperor Yongle took great pleasure in adorning the interior of this palace with treasures. Yongle blue and white porcelain is one of the most valuable types of Chinese porcelain. All of this type of blue and white porcelain came from the famous imperial kilns at Jingdejian. This town gained a reputation for making fine blue and white porcelain in the Yuan dynasty. During the Ming and Qing dynasties, China's porcelain became more colourful. The kilns of Jingdejian have been operating for over 500 years, sending countless masterpieces to the Forbidden City. The reign of Emperor Qianlong marked a high point in the manufacture of porcelain. This large vase is a good example of the fine craftsmanship of the period. It is decorated with 15 glazed colours, 16 emblazonries, and 12 auspicious images. It is known as the mother of porcelain. Many of the 350,000 porcelain objects now in the Palace Museum came from official Ming and Qing kilns. In addition to fine contemporary porcelain works, Ming and Qing emperors also collected porcelain made by the 5 best-known kilns of the Song dynasty, kilns that operated 1,000 years ago. These unique and exotic patterns were created by the high temperatures in the Song dynasty Juan kiln. These high temperatures cause the colours to flow. The phenomenon is known as kiln change. Each colour had a poetic name, but the most precious colour of them all was red. Porcelain from the Rule kiln is distinguished by its pale green colour and simple but elegant shape. Its elegance and simplicity represented another high point in Chinese porcelain manufacture. Extant porcelain from the Rule kiln is the rarest of porcelain from the 5 main Song kilns. There are no more than 100 pieces extant worldwide, and 20 of them are in the Forbidden City. These small, fine crackles on the surface are typical of porcelain from the Ge kiln. They were caused by the different way the glaze and porcelain reacted to the drastic change in temperature that occurred as the piece was removed from the kiln. These fine decorative crackles are only seen in porcelain from the Ge kiln. Porcelain from the official kiln was usually pale grey with simple shapes. The colour was said to come from agate after firing. Its surface was fine, smooth, and shiny like jade. The Ding kiln, named after the town of Ding in Hebei province, made porcelain that was usually pure white in colour. In addition to the Jingdejian porcelain makers, the Ming and Qing set up organizations to supply the imperial family with other daily necessities. One of these was the Imperial Household Department, founded in 1662 during the Qing dynasty. The Imperial Household Department was responsible for supplying everything, including porcelain, furniture, jade, cloisonne and paintings, as well as gold and silver utensils for daily use. This chair is the only one of its kind in the world. The main part was made from antlers of deer killed by Emperor Kangxi. It is just one of the masterpieces made by the Imperial Household Department. This chair has been called the first chair of the Chinese nation. It is made of red sandalwood and it is inside the Hall of Supreme Harmony. Emperors sat on this chair to read, write, and make decisions. The chair, desk, finely carved bed, footstools, tables, and everything else used by the emperor were made of the best materials with the finest craftsmanship in the country. Everything had to be fit for an emperor and his court. Ming Dynasty furniture featured a variety of lines in a single piece, including flat, concave, convex, protruding and intruding lines to form thousands of highly decorative shapes. This enormous jade carving depicts Da Yu subduing a flood. It weighs over 5 tons, making it the largest and heaviest jade carving among the 30,000 in the Forbidden City. People call it the King of Jade, and there's a story behind it. In the Kunlun mountain range in Xinjiang, there's a 5,000-meter high mountain capped with snow throughout the year. This mountain was famous for its nephrite, known locally as Hotan jade. People went up the mountain to mine the jade from July through to September. Nephrite is a soft, white and smooth type of stone. Streams formed by melting snow often carry small pieces of jade into the river, eventually becoming smooth jade stones, the finest type of Hotan jade. These stones were known as jade pebbles. One day in the summer of the year 1760, a 5-ton jade boulder was discovered on the mountain, but moving it to Beijing required taking it down the mountain and then moving it to Beijing via thousands of kilometers of rough and narrow road. To solve the problem, the workers first poured water on the road to make it slick. The jade was then loaded onto a wooden cart 11 meters long, which was pulled by 100 horses in front and pushed by 1,000 men behind. Even with such a massive force, however, they could only cover 10 kilometers a day. Transporting the jade boulder from the mountain in Xinjiang to the Forbidden City took 3 years. When Emperor Qianlong finally saw the jade, he was overjoyed. He instructed the Imperial Household Department to create a carving that would be a copy of a Song Dynasty painting depicting Da Yu subduing the floods. First, a preliminary carving plan was drawn up, after which Qianlong ordered the jade to be shipped to Yangzhou, where the best jade carvers worked. It took 10 years, several 100,000 men, a huge sum of money, and a team of carvers to turn this gigantic piece of jade into a piece of art in the Hall of Joyful Longevity. Emperor Qianlong had a few words inscribed on the work, dedicating it to a ruler who worked hard for the people. Many of the 9,000 rooms inside the Forbidden City were fancy and comfortable, but Emperor Qianlong preferred this 6-square-meter chamber. Here, he often spent time reading and writing, and of course enjoying his antiques, calligraphy and paintings. Emperor Qianlong could never have imagined that 100 years later, these three treasures would be involved in a major drama of loss and return. In the early 20th century, the Qing dynasty came to an end, and the Forbidden City was thrown into chaos. A concubine named Consort Jean secreted 2 of the treasures in her chambers in the Palace of Longevity and Health. She then smuggled them out of the palace in her luggage. The 2 stolen works ended up in Hong Kong. In 1951, the Chinese government paid a high price to bring them back to the Palace Museum. This third work ended up in Taiwan in 1949. It is now in the collection of the Palace Museum in Taipei. But the most dramatic event involved the famous Song Dynasty painting Along the River during Qingming Festival. This work was created between the year 1100 and 1125 by court artist Zhang Zeduan. The first collector of this famous painting was the Song Emperor Huizong. In 1127, it fell into the hands of the Jin dynasty after the fall of the Song capital Kaifeng. Puppet regime of Manchukuo collapsed, and the painting was sent to the Liaoning Provincial Museum. In 1953, it was finally returned to the Palace Museum. Between 1756 and 1762, Emperor Qianlong twice put down a Zunga rebellion, one of his 10 greatest military victories. The emperor commissioned foreign painters to commemorate the event, and then he had it sent to France to be made into copper plates. It took 7 French engravers 7 years to finish the job. Finally, in the year 1774, the 200 prints, the original painting, and the copper plates were shipped back to China 11 years after the project began. Emperor Qianlong was interested in more than painting and calligraphy. He also compiled 2 books about the 1,529 bronzes in his collection. Dayu, a ruler in ancient China who subdued the floods, allegedly had 9 bronzes made as a symbol of the unification of all the tribes. Ceremonial bronze items were popular during the Xia, Shang, and Zhou dynasties, and the following dynasties followed their example. By the time of Emperor Qianlong, bronze culture had long been in decline, but the emperor liked to collect bronzes as a symbol of his political ideals. To the emperors, bronzes symbolized an ideal society. The Palace Museum has an incredible 15,000 bronzes in its collection, 10 times as many as in Qianlong's collection. Over 1,600 of them bear inscriptions. This magnificent bronze is now in the Palace Museum in Taipei. Emperor Qianlong never saw it. In 1799, just 3 years after he retired, Emperor Qianlong passed away. As Qianlong faced death at the age of 89, the glory of the Qing Empire was also slowly dying. Much has happened in the 5 centuries since the Forbidden City was built. In that time, countless emperors, government ministers, poets, and artists have left their mark on the palace. Among other things, the Forbidden City served as the center of an empire, a military headquarters, and a storeroom for treasure. But that is now all history. Everything is gone except for the thick red walls, the magnificent palaces, and the paving bricks worn down by so many footsteps. If they could talk, they would tell us about the former glory of the Forbidden City.